A very good afternoon to you. My name is Lillian Muli. We continue with our live coverage of King Charles III visit to Kenya. We've been following his itinerary for most of the day. The King is in Kenya accompanied by Queen Camilla, and they kicked off their 4-day visit to the country yesterday. The King and the Queen have an elaborate itinerary while in the country, and we'll just be walking you through where exactly they are at the moment and what their program for the rest of the day is. The pictures on your screens are of King Charles III at the Nairobi Street Kitchen here in Nairobi County in the Westlands area. And there the King is flocked by young Kenyan artists, from musicians to designers to actors, as he continues with his tour of the Nairobi County. He is engaging young Kenyan entrepreneurs, and on the screen we've seen the likes of Sauti Sol, we've seen actresses, we've seen Muthoni Njoba, we've seen a couple of celebrities that are known on the Kenyan scene, songwriters, designers, creatives, as well as content creators. The King, of course, engaging these young Kenyans as he continues with his itinerary here in the capital city during this historic visit, which is aimed at solidifying Kenya-UK relations, and of course joined by Queen Camilla in this historic visit. Their Majesty's program will reflect the way in which Kenya and the United Kingdom are working together to boost mutual prosperity, to tackle climate change. And here, as you can see him engaging with the youth of this country to promote youth opportunities and employment, to advance sustainable development and create a more stable and secure region. So there he is mingling with creatives from across different sectors, young Kenyans who have visions around entrepreneurship, around design, around content creation, around songwriting. You can see ahead of their very big concert tonight, one of the Sauti Sol trio members there engaging with King Charles III ahead of their final concert tonight, actually, where they will be saying goodbye to each other as a trio. So that is one of the activities that the King engaged in right now. Those pictures are coming from the Nairobi Street Kitchen, where you actually get to see a lot of graffiti and art displayed, a lot of art displayed by Kenyan young artists in the form of graffiti on matatus, in the form of graffiti displayed in terms of t-shirts and art and designs as well as the entire setup of the place. Really a creative display of the work of Kenyan artists there at the Nairobi Street Kitchen, which made it a befitting venue, one would presume, for this engagement of King Charles III with the youth of the country. So as he continues to engage the youth there, we will be learning more about what exactly he engaged the youth of the country in. A lot of the focus that the King has had in previous talks, even at the UN earlier today, was on climate change and the effects of that globally. And we do know that just against the backdrop of the climate summit here in the country, the youth were actively engaged in talks around climate change. We will be waiting to hear later whether the King engaged in talks around climate change and youth involvement on the same. But very interestingly, the youth that we're seeing represented there, or those that we've been able to catch sight of, are from the creative sector. We're talking about actors, we're talking about musicians, songwriters, we're talking about content creators. Of course, the digital space being one that has come alive in recent years as Kenyans create employment for themselves on this space. And we've been able to catch sight of a number of content creators who have made big names for themselves on the digital scene. And of course, influencers as well, who are in the presence of King Charles III at the Nairobi Street Kitchen, where he is engaging youth that cut across different sectors, from musicians to content creators to actors to entrepreneurs, persons that have created job opportunities for the youth just like themselves. So a very young crowd there that is mingling with King Charles III, hoping to, of course, say a word or two to him around issues to do with the youth and their empowerment, issues to do with employment being a major issue in the country, and a lot of youth having graduated but still grappling with issues around employment and where to get employed. And so a lot of those that we have spotted here are actually Kenyans who are earning a living after using their art and their different creative gifts to earn an income. And that is the king there at the Nairobi Street Kitchen, engaging with the youth of this country. Much of the focus ahead of the King's trip, we'll be getting into that as we look at activities that preceded today's visit to the Nairobi Street Kitchen, and issues that the King has addressed, particularly last night at the state banquet that was held at State House, Nairobi. We'll be looking into issues around talks that the King has held, of course, with the President William Ruto, as well as where he is expected to visit during his visit here in the country. So for now, as he continues to engage the youth at the Nairobi Street Kitchen, we will be waiting to hear what exactly they have to say to the King and what he, of course, engaged them in on matters, of course, around climate change, matters around employment, matters around youth empowerment, on issues such as leadership. We've seen fashion designer Kiko Romeo's daughter there amidst the young people that are represented there. We've seen the lady who came up with the concept of blankets and wine, Muthoni, who is a creative in the arts. She's a songwriter, she is a composer, and she has given a number of Kenyan youth a platform to express their art during the Blankets and Wine annual, and I think quarterly event that is now hosted at the Kasarani Stadium, where Kenyan young artists are given a platform to perform and to, of course, earn a little bit from the proceeds that come from ticket sales. So we've seen a number of those young Kenyans represented there, and we can see the King making his way out after that brief engagement with the youth at the Nairobi Street Kitchen. Let's listen in. Okay, the King seems to have made his way out. That was a short visit there at the Nairobi Street Kitchen. Of course, he has a packed itinerary, and we'll just take you back to most of what he was engaged in earlier today, as of course day 2 of his itinerary continued. And to begin with, the visit of the president of the King to Kariokor Cemetery, where he was earlier today. He was welcomed by Governor Johnson Sakaja, and while there, of course, Prime Cabinet Minister Musalia Mudavadi also met him, and we also understand that earlier on he was at the United Nations, where he had a chat with the United Nations DG, as well as other persons there, spoke on matters climate change, as well as other issues that are affecting the globe, and of course spoke about environmental conservation. We'll be taking a very short break, and we'll come back with more on the King and Queen's itinerary here in the country. They're expected, of course, to also visit the Shedrick Wildlife Trust Elephant Orphanage. Earlier, the King was at Karura Forest, where he was greeted by celebrated marathoner Kipchoge Keino, and where he flagged off a children's race at the Karura Forest. Of course, this very significant in terms of environmental conservation, and his talks around climate change, and of course, a celebration of pioneer environmental conservationist Wangari Maathai. We're taking a short break. We're back with more in just a bit.